I was to get married on 12 December 2014 to somebody I was in a relationship with for 12 years. And 12 days before I was to get married, my wedding and the relationship got called off. I was completely broken, shattered, in deep trauma and despair, withdrawn from life. It was sure brutal, and it was like dying every single day. Having your identity taken from you, your core identity. And for me, it was being in a relationship. Having that taken from you, there's nothing that leaves you more powerless than that. And so I felt completely powerless. It built up over the next few weeks and months, and reached a point where I tried to end my life. You can safely say that had to be the lowest point of my life. I mean, wanting to end your life, how much worse can your life get, right? And then I ended up making 2015 the best year of my life. I turned around my life completely. I transformed who I was completely. My life changed so much that people started asking me what it was that I was doing differently and how they could get into the same state of flow that I seemingly was living in. And so I want to talk to you about how I transformed myself and what did I learn from it. There are many elements on this journey, of which I intend to talk primarily about experiences. I decided to do alone everything I thought of doing together with somebody. Facing your fears. You see, sometimes tragedy has such a deep impact on our lives that almost everything else feels inconsequential. My loss led me to lose all my fears, including the fear of death. I had bottomed out in life and had nothing to lose. Nobody's opinion of me mattered to me anymore. There was no fear of being judged or criticized by anybody. This is where I found freedom in my pains. And so I decided to face every major fear that I've ever had since I was a child. I had a major fear of water, and I decided to face it by going to surf in Puri, Orissa. So here I was, terribly scared of water, trying to take surfing lessons. In one of the lessons, while I was trying not to get myself killed learning how to surf, I saw what looked like jellyfish in the water. When I asked my trainer, a well-meaning guy from California, he said, "Don't worry, they're harmless jellyfish. If they sting you, you might become unconscious, but you won't die." That was my moment of truth. I had to decide whether I'm going to go on or retire from this whole thing. And then I pushed myself. I leaped into the water and rode on a huge wave, my biggest in the whole session. You see, when you push yourself beyond your fears, you reclaim yourself. You come out stronger on the other side. I closed my eyes and smelled freedom. It made me feel unconquerable. There was another major fear that I had. Believe it or not, it was dancing. And so I decided to join a salsa workshop. Initially, as you can imagine, it was a palm-sweating, heart-pounding experience. I almost fainted on my first day. But then I reminded myself, if I could survive jellyfish, I could probably survive this. And that opened up a whole new world for me. I attended salsa festivals around the country and connected with some amazing new people. And once you start having these experiences, you start viewing the world differently. You start connecting with the beauty of the world. And you find hope. Hope that there might be more to your life than you might have thought. I believe the keys to transformation from personal loss and experiencing the complete magnitude of life are travel, connecting with people, and following your passions. And I decided to experience all three, sometimes all at once. By the way, that's hand-painted by me, and all the pictures in this slide are my own work. So I planned to go to Europe the first summer after marriage. And so with every piece of my broken heart, I decided to go on a 35-day summer backpacking trip across Europe all by myself. As they say, travel is an art, and everybody has their own interpretation to travel. I decided to experience every possible interpretation there was to travel. I love photography, and so I went to Paris for a 2-week summer photography workshop, specializing in studio portrait photography. I didn't want to just travel like a tourist. I wanted to travel like a traveler. And so as to appreciate the French culture better, I took a 3-month course on the French language before heading out to Paris. It was one of the most immersive experiences of my life. I ate French food, even though I'm a vegetarian, traversed the entire wine trail of France and Italy, and drank just way too much wine. Attended the ballet, musical concerts, opera shows. I went to the famous Notre Dame Church for the Sunday Mass, attended the Sunday Farmers Market, traced and explored the regional culinary diversity of Italy, cycled Barcelona. I even had my Ek Ajnabi Hasina Se Yu Mulaqat story. And because I'm so passionate about fashion, I went to Florence for a shoemaking course. I decided to attend very many beautiful summer festivals across Europe. And I even flew from Paris to Siena, Italy for 1 day and then back, just to attend the famous horse racing festival of Palio di Siena. And when I was at Palio di Siena, I was so moved by the beauty, the intensity, the richness, the splendor of the event that I just began to cry. And in these moments, all you can see is the beauty of life, of nature. And you start looking at the world as this one big, beautiful place where pain and sadness is just a perception, not a reality. Experiencing beauty of all the senses, is one of the surest ways of connecting with ourselves and the world. And sometimes travel helps us do just that. In Paris, I ended up having the best meal of my life at the acclaimed restaurant Le Page. It was on my bucket list for a long time, and that was the place I decided to go with my ex-fiancée. So here I was, sitting alone, excited in anticipation, with a camera and notepad in hand to take notes of all the tastings. And it didn't disappoint. The baby tulips were so fresh and aromatic that it literally felt like I was walking in the gardens of Holland. The tomatoes so juicy, the homemade bread so crunchy, the cheese so rich, the cream so thick. The entire experience was so vivid and rich that even 1 year later, when I still think about it, it still activates my salivary glands. It's such beautifully evocative experiences that makes you realize the worth of life and of living. It's only when you lose yourself that you can find yourself again. I wanted to try the famous Burgundy region wine, which was my favorite wine type. However, by the time I got to its capital, Dijon, all the guided tours for the day had left. But my thirst for Burgundy wines was such that I decided to travel to the small wine towns myself. After a 10-minute train ride, I arrived at the smallest railway platform I'd ever seen in my entire life. And I'm from India and I'm saying that. But what was most remarkable was there was not one single person at the station. Not a local, not a tourist, not even a railway authority. Turns out it was a Sunday and literally everything remains closed. So I walked to the main street where all the major wineries were located. What was supposed to be a 10-minute walk turned into a 1-hour walk. For the first 3 kilometers, I did not come across one living soul. It was sweltering heat. I was alone, hungry, thirsty, tired, and I was scared with no person in sight. But I pushed past it, telling myself that I was brave and that I would not succumb to fear. And so I reached the main street, only to find it to be completely empty. Not one person in far sight. And to add to that, not one single winery was open. Not one single. Not even the ones who promised to stay open on Sundays. It was then I started losing hope, started blaming myself, questioning myself as to what was I trying to prove? That I was brave? And just when I was contemplating, I saw 2 women peeping into a wine store. Turns out, one was a wine guide living in Burgundy, and the other was a winemaking student. And they too were looking for a winery. So they invited me to join them, gave me a free ride of the entire Burgundy wine region, took me to the only wine store that was open on a Sunday, and then dropped me back to Dijon, where I got drunk on my favorite wine. But I tried to repay them. I repaid them by sharing my interesting stories from a Europe trip. So how does traveling help in my personal transformation? Travel allows you a respite by freeing up your thoughts and minds from all pains and baggage. It helps you live in the moment, in the now, which is where true happiness begins to set in. And slowly, thoughts start developing structure, and you start seeing your life and your past with immense clarity. Travel teaches us to trust ourselves and our instincts. Following one's passions helps us express ourselves. And to a broken heart, self-expression is an important tool for healing. Meeting new people. I realized that connecting with people, having meaningful conversations with them, was the true road to transformation. And so I set a goal of meeting 10 new people a week. And I did it for 5 months, mostly exceeding that number every single week. So how did I do it? And what did I learn from it? I started taking a newfound interest in people around me. And what I realized was that everybody wants to meet new people. But for the most part, it's about who says hi first, who initiates the conversation. I also feel that we don't initiate conversation with strangers because of the fear of rejection. But I had lost my fear of rejection because I just didn't care what the next person thought about me. And once I realized that, I suddenly started meeting people everywhere and started sharing my life stories with all these strangers. I was so keen on experiencing and living life as a local that throughout my Europe travels, I lived with the locals in their homes. That served as a unique viewpoint to observe, immerse, and participate in the local way of living. I learned how to cook homemade risotto from my roommate who was a chef in Paris, discussed the stunning architecture of Barcelona with my host who was a Mexican architect living in Barcelona, before starting to draw parallels between the cultural similarities of Mexican and Indian food in its use of rice and tamarind. In Sicilia, I was living with an Italian girl who was an ancient scripture language student, and we discussed Bhagavad Gita and Sanskrit. Such knowledge exchange stimulates, engages, and expands the mind. Back home, I joined a support group and connected with other people in pain. Connecting with these people helped me get closer to understanding human suffering. Knowing that you are not alone in your suffering is one of the single greatest relievers of pain that I have come across. I'd become so comfortable in talking to strangers that I would strike up conversations anywhere, on the street, in a bar, at an event, even at domestic airports. I started to radiate charisma because all the experiences I'd put myself through. This led me to befriend a former Miss India contestant. It's an interesting story. I was at the Delhi airport at the food court with a lot of time left for my takeoff. And my gaze went to this really attractive looking girl eating alone. And so I walked up to her and I asked her if I could join her and struck up a conversation with her. And then we got to talking and I realized that she's a very interesting person and we had a lot of common interests. And then she started appreciating my attitude of walking up to her and striking up a conversation. The funny thing was, I had no idea who she was until after she left. But what I realized was, once you start connecting with more people, and once they make an opinion of you based on who they think you are, you start to realize that maybe there's more to your life than one person's opinion. You started looking at yourself through the eyes of many different people, rather than just one person, whose opinion of you may not always have been very positive. This starts to build the necessary self-esteem, which is the essence of personal transformation. You see, when you combine all of these experiences, what was once your whole world suddenly starts feeling small. It shifts your consciousness. It opens you up to the possibilities of the world. And you start looking at yourself and the world around you differently. But what about life after travel? After all, for how long can one travel? Travel is only a short experience and just a part of the bigger experience, which is life. So you come back from your travels and your set point dips to the lows that you experienced before your travels. So how can you create vivid, engaging experiences living in your city, living in your home? I would say just look at the world around you. I believe when we start taking a greater interest in life, we somehow end up experiencing it differently. After I came back from Italy, I joined a tango workshop in Calcutta. It was taught by this couple from Italy. When I was in Italy, the Italians showed such great hospitality. I wanted to reciprocate the gesture to them. And so on the first day after class, I walked up to them and invited them to lunch the next day. They were delighted and accepted my invitation. What was truly memorable was, I didn't take them to a fancy restaurant the next day. I took them to low-key places where we could find authentic Calcutta food. I'd myself not been to these places in years, but the entire experience was so much fun. I seem to be enjoying it more than them. There's a friend of mine who lets out his vacant apartment on Airbnb, and because of this, he gets to meet people from all around the world. So I asked him, what is it like connecting with such diverse people? And he's like, why would I connect with them? My job is to give them the key, and then they're on their own. And I was like, what are you talking about? You're missing out on an experience you can't even imagine how beautiful it could be. Meet them, show them around. You'll not only make great friends, but you'll get a different perspective of the world. And so he decided to act on my suggestion. And soon, his life changed completely. After a while, I thought he became a little too zealous. He started picking people up from the airport, started sharing food, giving them souvenirs. On another occasion, I went to photograph a stranger's wedding. So I had a friend who used to organize events, and I joined part of his photography team and experienced capturing a beautiful Bengali wedding. That was the first time I had attended a Bengali wedding, and I was so immersed in how beautiful and intricate the culture was. I left with a greater appreciation for the culture and heritage of a different community. And just like that, I started racking up in-city experiences. I worked my way to six-pack abs. I walked the red carpet at a GQ fashion event. I learned magic from a magician and did a show. I made a short film by learning filmmaking on YouTube. We've grown 400% at work in 1 year. And I'm also writing a book on how to overcome personal loss by reading 2 books on how to write a book. And just like that, once you embrace the possibilities that a personal loss can be the turning point of your life, you're going to transform yourself and your life. And just like me, one day, sooner or later, you're going to wake up and have a hard time recognizing the person who you used to be. So what did I learn from all my experiences? Firstly, that the world is full of amazingly great, truly genuine, kind people, and that we all want the same things from life, and that true happiness comes from connecting with other people, and that we must respect the differences in cultures, ideologies, and people. Secondly, value the most important people in your life. Tell your parents, tell your family, tell your friends, people close to you, how much you love them and how much they mean to you. And so the most important message that I want to leave you with today is, why wait for personal loss to transform your life? Why not live the life you truly want? Why not move one step beyond your comfort zone? Why not move beyond your excuses of not having enough money, not having enough time, not having company, waiting for the right time? I'm just a regular guy having a full-time day job, and I truly believe that if I can experience life closely and move past my fears and completely transform the definition of who I am, any person on this planet can. And I want you to realize that irrespective of whatever has happened up to now in your life, you have the power within you to truly transform your life. So why wait for personal loss? Why not you? And why not now? Thank you.